In this introductory video, we will open a LabVIEW file, save it, put some basic tools into the front panel and block diagram. We'll save it again and close it and reopen it so that you can see just the real basic stuff about opening and starting files in LabVIEW. So you have your LabVIEW open, File, New VI, or just Control N. We don't usually worry about projects because we're not doing much with complex dependencies. So you open a new VI and your windows pop up. A hotkey to remember is tile left and right, Control T, puts the windows side by side. I find this a helpful way to work in LabVIEW. And then when I right click on the front panel, which is the gridded gray window, I get the controls because in my front panel, I have everything the user will either interact with or see as output. So this is my controls. If I pin this window open, it stays open, and when I'm working in the front panel, I can see my controls. I tend to put this in front of my block diagram because when I click in my block diagram, controls go away, and again, if I right click, I get functions because in my block diagram, this is where I will use functions to create the programming that runs the VI. So I move my functions in front of my front panel and I can work over here. My front panel has controls, and that's my basic setup usually. And so I'll go ahead and add a while loop with a stop button. That's one of the first things I usually do because I want to be able to run my program over and over again. And so the way this program functions is anything outside of the while loop would happen once, and anything inside of the while loop will happen until I press the stop button. And so I can kind of illustrate that if I add a few inputs. So I'm going to come to my front panel, and I'm going to make the stop button just a bit bigger so it's easier to see. And on my front panel, in the controls, I'll add two numeric controls. Those are input boxes. And I'll call, I'll just call them by default for now. And then I'll have a numeric indicator for each. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move numeric outside of the while loop. And I'm going to just wire through. And the wire is a spool of wire, and so if you hover over the output of a control, your mouse changes, and you can wire things up. So very basic. This is simply taking an input and directly outputting it. So I'm going to go ahead and run this program. And so I hit my run button, which is the white arrow at the top of my front panel, run. And as I change numeric 2, it updates numeric 4. Because those two are connected. And as I change numeric, it does not change numeric 3 because I'm already inside the while loop. But if I stop and rerun, it does change to the initial value. And so just something to consider there. If you need it to be dynamic, it probably needs to be inside a while loop. Anything outside a while loop happens once. And your stop button is what's stopping these programs. Okay, so last step here is saving. You always want to save your work. So if I hit save, it's going to ask me where. So I'll go ahead and put this in my LabVIEW folder. And now, if I close my block diagram, it does not close the program. I can still run the program. If I close, and if I have both windows open, but I close my front panel, it closes the whole program. And so when I'm in this window, I can open that file, and it only opens the front panel by default. So be ready. You have to reopen your block diagram separately. And that's all there is to it. So questions welcome, but this should get you started writing your first program in LabVIEW.